I want to try something a little different to kick things off today.
Oh, yeah.
Usually we jump right into the data or, the controversy of the week. But the research we're looking at today, it starts with a visualization. And honestly, I think it's necessary to get our heads in the right place before we can even tackle the concepts.
It's a bit of a calibration exercise. We need to reset the baseline.
Exactly. So I want to ask you, the listener, to just humor us for a second. If you're commuting, keep your eyes on the road, obviously, but just mentally hit pause, take a deep breath.
Okay.
Now, I want you to imagine waking up tomorrow morning and the first thing you notice is the silence. Not just the physical silence in your house, but the silence inside your head. Imagine that the mental to-do list that usually starts scrolling the second you open your eyes is just blank.
That sounds almost suspicious to modern ears. Like, I forgot to set the alarm or I missed a meeting.
Right. It feels foreign. But stick with it. Imagine there are fewer demands pulling at your attention. No panic about emails. No vague sense of being behind before your feet even hit the floor.
Okay.
Just a quiet, steady sense of clarity guiding whatever you decide to do next. You realize that the pressure you've been carrying, the rush, the anxiety, the need to perform wasn't a lot of physics. It was optional. And you just let it go.
It's a powerful hook. And it's, frankly, a little painful because it highlights just how far away from that state most of us actually live.
We live in the noise.
We absolutely do.
We really do. And that brings us to the core premise of what we're diving into today. We are looking at a stack of research, philosophy, and behavioral psychology that circles around a concept the sources call the intelligence of simplicity. And I want to be super clear right off the bat because I know the baggage that comes with that word.
Simplicity. It's a loaded term, for sure.
Yeah. When people hear simplicity, they usually think of one of two things. Either I have to sell my house, live in a barrel, and eat oatmeal for the rest of my life.
The ascetic monk approach. Denial. Misery.
Exactly. Or they think it's some high-end Instagram aesthetic where everything is beige, you own exactly one ceramic fork, and you have no children to mess it up.
Right. Performative minimalism. But the sources are adamant that this is not about poverty and it's not about interior design.
Yeah.
It's not about deprivation at all. It's about wisdom. It's about intention. The argument here is actually quite bold. It suggests that simplicity is a form of higher intelligence.
That's the dangerous question posed by Henry David Thoreau, who acts as kind of the spiritual grandfather of this deep dive.
Right.
We're filtering him through a modern lens today, but his core question remains. He asked, what if less is not a loss, but a gain? What if simplicity isn't weakness, but the smartest competitive advantage you can have?
And that framing competitive advantage is key because we usually view simplicity as checking out of the game. Thoreau argues it's the only way to actually win the game.
But why are we talking about this now? I mean, Thoreau was writing in the 1850s. He was complaining about the telegraph and trains. If he saw TikTok or the 24-hour news cycle, his head would probably explode.
It absolutely would. But that's exactly why it's relevant. The problem he identified, this sickness of excess, has metastasized.
It's gotten worse, not better.
So much worse. The source material makes a compelling case that this is radically relevant to the modern soul because we are dealing with technology that accelerates life to a pace the human brain wasn't designed for.
Right.
Society celebrates excess, speed, and volume. And the result, we aren't just busy, we are fractured.
Fractured. That's a good word for it. It really is.
We feel overwhelmed, distracted, and exhausted. And the promise of this deep dive isn't just how to clean your closet.
No.
It's to explore how simplicity fundamentally changes our understanding of three really big things: success, happiness, and the self.
So let's get into the meat of it. The sources kick things off with what they call the diagnosis.
Okay.
And it starts with a line that I think everyone has heard, but maybe hasn't actually read.
The mass of men lead lives of quiet desperation.
It's such a heavy line. Quiet desperation. It's become a cliche, but when you stop and look at it, it's haunting. Why quiet?
Because it's internal. We aren't screaming in the streets. We are smiling. We are going to work. We are buying the latte. But internally, there is this hum of anxiety.
Low-grade dread.
Exactly. And the source material clarifies a common misconception here. Thoreau wasn't saying that life is inherently tragic. He wasn't saying the universe is cruel.
So it's not nihilism.
Not at all. He was saying that people live in desperation because they surrender their time and energy to things that do not matter.
So the desperation is self-inflicted.
In a way, yes.
Yeah.
It's a result of miscalculation. The sources call it an unconscious inheritance.
Unconscious inheritance. Break that down for me.
It's the idea that we live lives designed by external expectations rather than conscious choice.
That's script.
The script, exactly. We inherit a script from our parents, our culture, our peers. The script says, go to this school, get this job, buy a house in this zip code, drive this car, upgrade your phone every 2 years. We follow the script step by step, but we never stop to ask, wait, does this script actually fit me?
It's like wearing a suit that's 3 sizes too small, but you wear it because everyone else is wearing tight suits.
And you wonder why you can't breathe. You think the problem is you aren't strong enough to wear the suit, but the problem is the suit.
This reminds me of the burden of appearance section in the notes. It talks about the sheer energy cost of this inheritance, and I think we all feel that.
Oh, absolutely.
The amount of battery power we drain just trying to maintain an image or a lifestyle that we didn't even really choose.
It's exhausting. And this is where the material brings in Carl Jung, the famous psychologist. Jung warned about this almost a century ago. He said that living according to external demands leads to inner fragmentation.
That sounds painful. Inner fragmentation. Can we linger on that for a second? What does that actually feel like on a Tuesday morning?
It feels like you are a different person depending on who is in the room. You have your work face, your parent face, your social media face.
Yeah.
You are constantly editing yourself to fit the context. When you accumulate too many personas and too many obligations, you lose your center. You lose the self.
You're just a collection of masks.
A collection of masks. And Jung argued, and the Thoreau saw this too, that complexity clouds perception. You can't see who you are because there's too much junk in the way.
So simplicity isn't just about cleaning up, it's about integration, putting the pieces back together.
Precisely. And we have modern behavioral psychology to back this up now. The sources cite research on the paradox of choice.
Oh, the JAM study.
The JAM study, exactly. But applied to life. The research shows that excessive choice and excessive input actually increase anxiety and dissatisfaction.
We think we want more options.
We think, if I have more options, I'm freer. But the brain is a processing engine. If you flood it with data, decisions, and clutter, it stalls.
I like the analogy I've heard used before, comparing a cluttered room to a cluttered mind. If I'm trying to write a script and my desk is covered in old bills, coffee cups, and laundry,
You can't focus.
I can't focus. My brain is constantly scanning the mess, even peripherally.
It's cognitive load. Every object in your visual field, every unmade decision in your mind takes up a tiny slice of RAM.
RAM, that's the perfect metaphor. We're running too many background apps.
And the argument here is that simplicity closes the background apps. Living simply isn't about owning nothing.
Right.
It's about owning only what serves your values. It's clearing off the desk so you can actually do the work.
So if we close the apps, if we clear the desk, what do we get? Because I think people fear the void. They think, if I stop running, I'll be bored. But the source material says we get something priceless.
You get time.
The ultimate currency.
Thoreau's central argument is that the person who simplifies gains time. And he doesn't mean time to watch more Netflix or scroll endlessly.
No.
He means time to think, time to observe, time to grow.
Know thyself.
It goes back to Socrates. You cannot know yourself if you are constantly distracted by the maintenance of external things. If you spend your whole weekend cleaning the boat, fixing the pool, and organizing the garage, when do you have time to just be?
This leads to a complete redefinition of wealth. This was one of the parts of the research that really made me stop and think.
Yeah, this card is huge.
Because in our culture, the equation is simple. Success equals accumulation. More money, more status, more square footage.
And Thoreau turns that logic upside down. He suggests that the truly wealthy person is the one who needs the least.
The one who needs the least. That is such a flip. It sounds almost anti-American. I mean, our whole economy is built on needing things.
In an economic sense, maybe, but in a human sense, it aligns with Stoic philosophy. Seneca famously warned that wealth creates anxiety when it exceeds necessity.
Right.
He said, "It is not the man who has too little, but the man who craves more that is poor."
Because once you have the extra, you have to manage it. You have to insure it, clean it, worry about it getting stolen.
Exactly. It becomes a burden. And modern happiness studies back this up consistently. The data is clear. Beyond basic needs, food, shelter, safety, healthcare, increased consumption does not equal increased fulfillment.
The curve flattens.
The curve flattens out.
Yeah.
In fact, the sources point out it often dips. It leads to stress, debt, and what they call emotional exhaustion.
So the sources pose some really uncomfortable questions here, and I want to ask them to the listener directly, even though they make me squirm a bit.
Go for it.
Okay. Question 1. If everything unnecessary were removed from your life, the status symbols, the busy work, the social climbing, what would remain?
Right.
And the follow-up, who would you become without the excess?
Tough questions.
Why are they so uncomfortable? Because I feel a little defensive just asking them. I want to say, hey, I worked hard for my excess. I earned that clutter.
That defensiveness is the point.
Yeah.
The expert insight here is that these questions cause discomfort because we have tied our identities to the excess. We think, I am the guy with the nice car, or I am the woman with the busy schedule. We use busyness as a proxy for importance.
Sure.
If you take that away, we're terrified there might be nothing left.
But the source says that discomfort is good.
Yes. Thoreau believed discomfort is the first sign of awakening. You have to feel that pinch to realize you're trapped. If the cage is comfortable, you never try to leave.
Which brings us to the next big theme, simplicity as active rebellion. Because I think there's a misconception that simplicity is passive. You know, you just give up, retire, and sit on a rock.
Right, checking out. But the source asserts the opposite. It says simplicity is an active, aggressive, conscious choice. It requires courage to go against the current.
Because the current is pulling us toward more all the time.
Constantly. The entire economy is built on dissatisfaction. To stand in the middle of a consumer culture and say, I have enough, is a radical act.
It's a revolt.
It is a revolt. And the motivation for this isn't just to save money. The source brings in Viktor Frankl here.
The author of Man's Search for Meaning.
Correct. Frankl developed logotherapy, which is based on the idea that meaning is the deepest human motivation, not pleasure and not power.
Meaning.
And meaning, the sources argue, emerges in stillness. It does not emerge in accumulation. You don't find the meaning of life in the checkout line.
Or scrolling through social media for 3 hours.
Which brings us to the attention economy.
Yeah.
This is where the source material gets very modern.
Yeah.
It frames simplicity as a defense mechanism against a world that profits from your distraction.
We are the product, right? Our attention is what's being sold.
Neuroscience confirms that constant stimulation fragments attention. It physically weakens your ability to do deep thinking.
Whoa.
If you're checking your phone every 4 minutes, you are literally training your brain to be shallow. So Thoreau's call to simplicity is really called to reclaim the mind.
There's a specific concept here I want to unpack, the servant-master inversion.
Yes, this is crucial.
Explain that one.
Well, we buy objects thinking they will serve us. I buy a big house so I can host parties and relax. But then I have to work to pay the massive mortgage. I have to spend my weekends fixing the roof and mowing the lawn. I can't take a vacation because I'm house poor.
So the house isn't serving you, you are serving the house.
Exactly. We become servants to our possessions. We work to maintain objects rather than owning our time. Thoreau asks, is the object working for you, or are you working for it?
Man, that's real. I think about that with cars, too. You buy a car to get around, but if you buy a car that's so expensive you have to work overtime to make the payments, the car is actually trapping you at work.
That is the definition of the inversion. And this leads to mental sovereignty.
I love that phrase, mental sovereignty.
It means if you define enough for yourself, fear-based motivation collapses. Advertisers can't scare you into buying things if you don't feel a lack. Peer pressure doesn't work if you aren't competing.
You become untouchable.
You become free. And that freedom scares people because it leads to something we discussed briefly but need to go deeper on, solitude.
Let's talk about that. Because when I hear solitude, I think loneliness. And loneliness is bad, right? We're social animals.
We are, but the source makes a critical distinction here. It calls it the paradox of solitude.
Okay.
Thoreau spent a lot of time alone, but he wasn't a misanthrope. He didn't hate people. He argued that solitude actually improves your relationships.
How does being away from people make you better at being with people?
Because it refines your ability to connect authentically. Psychological affirmations in the text suggest that those who are comfortable with solitude form deeper, healthier bonds. Think about it. If you are terrified of being alone, you will cling to anyone. You will stay in bad relationships. You will tolerate toxic friends just to avoid the silence.
So you're using people as a distraction.
Exactly. You're using them to fill a void. But if you are content in your own company, if you can sit in a room alone and be okay,
Yeah.
then when you choose to be with someone, it's out of genuine interest. It's not neediness.
The source says presence deepens. Listening becomes respect.
Think about a conversation where neither person is looking at their phone, neither person is rushing to the next appointment, and neither person is trying to impress the other.
That sounds rare.
It is rare, but simplicity makes it possible. It creates emotional resilience.
How so?
When you build a life on fewer, more meaningful pillars, your life is less fragile.
Right. If your self-worth is tied to 50 different external things, your job title, your car, your number of followers, and one of them breaks, you crumble.
Exactly. People anchored in external validation suffer more from stress. Thoreau anchored himself in self-trust. The outcome is what the source calls a calm authority.
A calm authority.
You don't have to shout to be heard. You don't have to flash your wealth to be respected. You just represent yourself.
I want to shift gears to this idea of lucidity. The sources move from the physical clutter, the stuff in the garage, to the mental clutter.
Yes.
And they talk about dismantling illusions.
Yes. Simplicity isn't just about cleaning the garage. It's about cleaning the lens through which you see the world.
What are the illusions we're dismantling here?
There are three big ones mentioned. The illusion that worth equals productivity.
Okay.
The illusion that speed equals progress.
Hmm.
And the illusion that stimulation equals being alive.
Oh, that last one hits. Stimulation equals being alive. I feel like that is the mantra of the 21st century. If I'm not overwhelmed, am I even doing anything?
We equate being frantic with being important. But often that's just a way to avoid looking at reality. Lucidity is defined here as the capacity to see reality without distortion.
And Thoreau's view was that suffering comes from the stories we tell ourselves.
Yes. This is very Buddhist, actually, though Thoreau comes at it from a transcendentalist angle.
Right.
Life itself is rarely unbearable in the present moment. Suffering is often caused by the stories attached to life, the comparisons, the should-haves, the what-ifs.
The narrative.
The narrative. Simplicity strips these stories away. This connects strongly to CBT cognitive behavioral theory. Clarity of thought reduces emotional distress.
It's about living deliberately. That's the famous Thoreau quote. I went to the woods because I wished to live deliberately.
To choose consciously rather than reacting habitually.
I have to ask myself, and I'll ask the listener, how often do we say yes when we mean no? How often do we scroll when we actually feel restless or sad?
Those are symptoms. They are symptoms of a life that has become too complex to examine. We are on autopilot.
Yeah.
Simplicity provides the space to pause, turn off the autopilot, and choose differently.
Let's move into the deeper, almost spiritual dimension of this. The sources bring up flow and direct experience. And I want to be careful here not to get too woo-woo, but there is real psychology here.
Absolutely. This brings in William James, the philosopher and psychologist. He talked about direct experience being the root of meaning.
What does direct experience look like versus indirect?
Indirect experience is watching a travel vlogger climb a mountain.
Okay.
Direct experience is the grit under your fingernails as you climb it yourself. We live in a world of mediation. We watch people live. Simplicity strips away the screens and the filters.
Right.
Nature is a great tool for this, which is why Thoreau went to the woods. Nature strips reality to fundamentals.
Yeah.
Water, light, silence, effort. There's no spin, there's no marketing. It just is.
And the role of silence. The source says silence is not emptiness, it is information. That stopped me in my tracks.
That's a profound point. We usually treat silence as a void to be filled. But silence reveals what the mind is avoiding.
How so?
If you sit in silence and you feel anxious, that anxiety is information. It tells you something is wrong.
If you never sit in silence, you never hear the message. You just keep drowning it out with podcasts, present company excluded, naturally, or music or TV.
Exactly. And this leads to the flow state. The sources connect Thoreau's deliberate living to the work of Mihaly Csikszentmihalyi.
The flow guy.
The flow guy. Flow is that state of deep engagement where time dissolves. It's found in clarity, not excess.
Yeah.
You can't find flow when you are multitasking. You can't find flow when you have 50 tabs open.
The source makes a point that ordinary acts become radical when done with this kind of attention. Eating when hungry, resting when tired, observing nature, living without unnecessary mediation.
It's about removing the layers between you and your life.
We're coming to what the source calls the final realization. And honestly, this is the part that moved me the most.
Yeah.
It's about the right to exist.
It is the most powerful insight of the material. Simplicity reveals that you do not need to earn your right to exist through accumulation or productivity.
Just let that sink in for a second, because I think most of us, deep down, feel like we have to pay rent for our space on Earth. I did this today, so I'm allowed to be here.
It is the fundamental neurosis of the modern era. We feel this need to validate our existence. And Thoreau's radical proposition, and it is radical, is that the existence itself is the validation. The tree doesn't hustle to justify being a tree. It just grows.
Right. But we aren't trees. We have mortgages. We have kids who need braces. How does this actually apply? I mean, I can't just go sit by a pond and say, I exist, therefore I don't need to pay the electric bill.
And that's where we have to be careful not to misinterpret the source. It's not saying don't work.
Okay.
It's saying don't confuse your economic output with your human worth. And practically, it means examining the why behind the bills. Do you need the promotion to feed your kids? Or do you need the promotion because you're terrified of looking stagnant compared to your college roommate?
That's the unconscious inheritance part again. Are we paying for a life we chose or a life we were told to want?
Exactly. When you strip away the life you were told to want, you often find that the life you need is much cheaper.
Right.
And that cheapness buys you freedom. That's the equation. Lower overhead equals higher freedom.
It's incredibly liberating.
It is deeply liberating, but the expert commentary in the source notes that it carries a responsibility. Once you see this, once you realize you don't have to run the rat race, you have a choice. You can continue as before, which is a choice, or you can redesign with intention.
It's about alignment and coherence.
Yes. Simplicity creates alignment between your values and your actions. If you value peace, but your life is chaotic, you're out of alignment. If you value family, but you work 80 hours a week for a promotion you don't need, you're out of alignment.
And this restores self-trust.
Maslow observed this. He noted that self-actualized people, people who are living their full potential, tend to be simple in their tastes, but rich in their inner life.
Interesting.
They trust themselves enough not to need the external props.
So we've gone from the diagnosis of quiet desperation all the way to lucidity and flow.
It's a journey from unconscious living to deliberate living.
And I think it's important to reiterate, simplicity is not a sword backward. It feels like stepping off the treadmill, which might look like stopping, but it's actually stepping onto solid ground.
It's a step deeper into awareness and autonomy.
The source material leaves us with a final provocative thought. And I want to leave this with you, the listener. It's a question to carry with you today.
If your life was stripped to its essentials, what would you protect at all costs?
That's not a question you can answer in 2 seconds.
No, you have to walk around with that one.
Whatever your answer is to that question, that is your compass. That is what matters. Everything else is just noise.
And identifying that compass is the beginning of the intelligence of simplicity.
So take that dangerous question with you. Let it sit. Let it be a little uncomfortable. And see what happens when you start to clear the room.
But before we go, I want to circle back one last time to that flow state and attention.
Yeah, because I feel like my attention is just shredded every day. And I suspect I'm not alone.
You are definitely not alone. That is the design of the modern digital landscape.
The source said, intelligence flourishes when attention is protected, not exploited. That made me think about how we treat our minds like public trash cans.
That's a vivid image.
We let anyone throw anything in there.
That is a vivid image, but accurate. We let the news, the advertisers, the angry person on Twitter, we let them all dump their noise into our cognitive space.
Right.
Thoreau's intelligence of simplicity is essentially a gatekeeping function. It's saying, no, you don't get in. My mind is for my thoughts.
And that's where the intelligence part comes in. It's not just about being zen. It's about being smart.
Yes.
You can't think deeply if you're constantly reacting.
Correct. Deep thinking requires sustained attention. Innovation requires sustained attention. Empathy requires sustained attention. If you are fragmented, you're dumber. I don't mean that as an insult, but clinically, your cognitive capacity drops.
So simplicity actually makes you sharper?
Lucidity, as the source calls it. You see things clearly. When you see clearly, you make better decisions.
Yeah.
You stop solving problems that don't exist, and you focus on the ones that do.
Yeah. Let's talk about the servant-master inversion again, because I feel like that is a trap so many of us fall into. The idea that we work to maintain our possessions.
It's insidious because it happens slowly. You buy the boat because you want freedom.
Sure.
But now you have to pay for the slip, the maintenance, the winter storage. So you work more hours. Now you have the boat, but no time to use it.
So the boat owns you.
Boat owns you.
Yeah.
And the boat is sitting there mocking you. Precisely. And Thoreau asks, was the boat worth the life you exchanged for it? Because that's the real cost.
What he said about cost.
Thoreau famously said, "The cost of a thing is the amount of what I call life, which is required to be exchanged for it immediately or in the long run."
The amount of life exchanged for it. That should be on the price tag of everything.
It changes how you shop, doesn't it?
Yeah.
It's not this costs $50, it's this cost me 3 hours of my life.
Is it worth 3 hours?
Is it? Maybe. Maybe not. But simplicity demands you do the math.
I love that. It's such a practical tool.
It is. And it leads to that calm authority we mentioned. When you know the value of your time, you protect it. You don't let people waste it. You don't let things waste it.
You know, we touched on Frankel and meaning. I want to go a bit deeper there. The source said meaning emerges in stillness, not accumulation. Why is stillness so scary?
Because stillness removes the buffer. When you are busy, you can ignore the gnawing questions. Am I happy? Is this relationship working? Does my job matter?
Yeah.
When you stop, the questions catch up to you.
So we stay busy to run away from the question.
We run very fast.
Yeah.
Simplicity forces you to stop running. And that confrontation, meeting yourself in the silence, that is the discomfort the source warned about. But it's the only way to get to the truth.
It's like the silence is a mirror.
Yes. And sometimes we don't like what we see in the mirror, but once you see it, you can fix it. You can't fix what you won't look at.
That's the CBT connection mentioned in the source. Clarity reduces distress. Once you identify the problem, you can actually deal with it instead of just feeling this vague anxiety.
Exactly. Nameless dread is the worst kind. When you name it, I am unhappy because I am lonely, or I am stressed because I am overextended, then you can solve it. Simplicity gives you the space to name the dread.
I'm thinking about the flow state again. 6th Cent Mahali. How does simplicity trigger flow? Is it just about lack of distraction?
It's about singular focus. Flow happens when the challenge meets the skill level, and you are 100% there.
Right.
You cannot be in flow if you are checking your email every 10 minutes. Simplicity, the act of single tasking, is the gateway to flow.
And flow is where we feel most alive.
It's the optimal human experience. So, if simplicity leads to flow, and flow leads to optimal experience, then simplicity leads to the best possible life. That's the logical chain.
It's not about deprivation, it's about optimization.
That's a great way to put it. We are optimizing for experience, not for inventory.
Optimizing for experience, not inventory. I'm going to write that down. That's good.
I try.
So as we really wrap up, I keep coming back to that final visualization, the right to exist. The source says, you are allowed to be here, to breathe, to grow at a human pace. Human pace is a beautiful phrase.
We live at a machine pace. Machines don't need rest. Machines don't need to grieve. Machines don't need to ponder. We do.
Yeah.
Simplicity is the reclamation of the human pace.
And if we don't reclaim it,
Then we burn out.
right.
The machine wears out the gears. That's the exhaustion mentioned at the very beginning. We are biological beings trying to live at a digital speed. It's unsustainable.
So the intelligence of simplicity is really just sanity.
It is the sanity of recognizing what we are. We are finite. We have limited time, limited energy, limited attention.
Right.
Simplicity is the intelligent management of those finite resources.
It all comes back to that economic term, resource management. But the resource is us.
The resource is your life, and it's the only one you get.
Well, that puts a fine point on it. It's high stakes.
The life.
Before we sign off for real, I want to revisit that dangerous question one more time. If your life was stripped to its essentials, what would you protect at all costs?
This question you can't answer quickly. You have to walk around with it.
Maybe on a walk in the woods?
Highly recommended.
Without your phone?
Even better.
All right, listeners, you have your homework. Go find your essentials. Thanks for joining us on The Deep Dive.
Take care.